Hello. So I went live the other day and I don't know where all these weird people came from. So, hey, lady. So I was kind of nervous to go live again because I didn't want these, like, all these weird people in the live. So I've kind of kept it quiet on YouTube since the other day because whoever they were, they just like took over the comment section, and it was really kind of frustrating to deal with, and I did not want to deal with that. So that's why I've been gone for a couple of days, but I am definitely back, and we are going to be reading this book. I'm going to go ahead and start reading it now. We were on chapter 3 with the faces of maternal narcissism. If you haven't already listened to chapters 1 and 2 and the prologue, those are in another video saved on my YouTube. And just FYI, if you are watching me on TikTok, I do not think that TikTok is going to get banned, but on the chance that it does, you can find me on YouTube at the same username. It's at BMViv the Pet Stylist. And just go follow me on YouTube because I post literally almost the exact same content on TikTok that I post on YouTube. I don't think that TikTok is going to get banned, but you know, stranger things have happened. So I know a lot of people are posting videos talking about the TikTok ban, and I wondered to myself, if the problem is that TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, ByteDance, then why don't they have a problem with Temu? Why don't they have a problem with Shein? Why don't they have a problem with Alibaba? Like, all of those companies are also owned by a Chinese company. So why would it matter that TikTok is owned by a Chinese company? And then on top of that, they're okay with ByteDance being sold to the United States. So why didn't ByteDance just create a US company and like sell it to themselves in the US? Wouldn't that have seemed like the easiest thing to do rather than what they're doing now? I don't know. That's just my thought on it. I felt like um, it sounded like an easy solution for ByteDance to have just created a US company and just basically sold it to itself in the United States, right? I don't know. That's just what I've been thinking about it. Let me know what you think. Anyways, the faces of maternal narcissism. Hey, Jamie. All of life, all history happens in the body. I am learning about the women who carried me inside of hers. Sita Walker in Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. Oh, I remember that movie. Did any of you watch that movie, Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood? It's been so long since I've watched that movie, but I do remember watching that movie. It was so good. Okay. Self trust, self love, and self knowledge can be taught to a daughter only by a mother who possesses those qualities herself. Furthermore, to pass them on successfully, a mother needs to have created an engaged and balanced relationship with her daughter. One of the problems with narcissism is that it does not allow for balance. Daughters of narcissistic mothers live in family environments that are extreme, true to their legacy of distorted love, which has been carried over from generation to generation. Most narcissistic mothers either severely overparent, the engulfing mother, or severely underparent, the ignoring mother. Although these two parenting styles are seemingly opposite to a child raised with either narcissistic style, the impact of the opposite is the same. Your self image becomes as distorted, and feelings of insecurity seem impossible to shake. The engulfing mother smothers, seemingly unaware of her daughter's unique needs or desires. Perhaps you were raised like this. If so, it is likely that the natural talents you had, the dreams you wanted to pursue, or maybe even the relationships most important to you were rarely nurtured. Your mother constantly sent messages to you about what she needed you to be instead of validating who you really were. Desperate to merit her love and approval, you conformed and in the process lost yourself. Hey, Claire. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. If you were raised by an ignoring mother, the message she gave you over and over was that you were invisible. She simply did not have enough room in her heart for you, and as a result, you were dismissed and discounted. Children with severe ignoring mothers do not receive even the most basic requirements of food, shelter, clothing, or protection, let alone guidance and emotional support. Lack of a consistent home environment may have made you feel insecure, unhealthy, or unsuccessful at school. Emotional or physical neglect sends you the message that you do not matter. Having a narcissistic mother, whether she is engulfing or ignoring, makes individuation, a separate sense of self, difficult for a daughter to accomplish. Daughters with unmet emotional needs keep going back to their mothers, hoping to gain their love and respect at a later date. Daughters who have a full emotional tank have the confidence to separate in healthy fashion and move on into adulthood. Later in the recovery chapter, we will address this in greater depth. For now, let's look at the different phases of engulfing and ignoring mothers that their daughters that and their effects on their daughters. So I will say that I had an ignoring mother. My mother did not care anything about what it was that I was doing, did not give me any sort of emotional support at all. The only thing that she did was if I was self destructing, she would be judgmental in those ways. But anytime I was ever doing good or positive in life, it just kind of seemed to evade her. Those things were not important. So I do know that as I've become more self-aware, I have been able to notice that there was a pattern that I had continually trying to have a relationship with her, that to try to get what it was that I was missing, and I never got that. And so once I finally realized that I was never going to get the relationship that I wanted, that it was just time to let go and just part ways, because it was searching for that relationship was at the detriment of my own mental health, and it was causing me to stumble in life, because the lack of support that I was getting from her was causing me to self-destruct and look at myself in ways that were not productive for myself or anyone in my life. So, the engulfing mother. The engulfing mother tries to dominate and control every aspect of her daughter's life. And I can almost see how Gypsy's mom, Dee Dee, was this type of mother, the engulfing mother. She makes all the decisions and pressures the daughter on what to wear, how to act, what to say, what to think, and how to feel. Her daughter has little room to grow and blossom individually or to find her own voice, becoming in many ways an extension of her mother. Engulfing mothers often appear to be great moms because they're very involved in their daughter's life and may always be doing things for them and with them. Others outside the family often view them as active, engaged parents. Yet the weakened self image and the sense of unworthiness their daughters take away from this behavior are tragic. Narcissistic mothers are unaware of the damaging, often devastating consequences of their behavior, which of course does not diminish its lasting effects. Miriam was 28 years old, engaged to be married, and locked in a fierce struggle with her mother over control of her life. Miriam's mother did not approve of her fiance and was doing everything conceivable to interfere, including speaking negatively about him to several people at his place of employment. My mother hoped the word would get back to me that my fiance was a loser, or better still, that he would give up and leave town. Let me tell you a thing or two about love relationships, Toby's mother would say to her all too often. Toby, 48, describes her mother as someone who loves men and knows how to manipulate them. When Toby was old enough to date, her mother would coach her on how to keep a man's interest, admonishing her daughter as if she was not flirtatious enough. She would undo the top buttons on my blouse and show me how to act sexy. Toby remembers her mother's sage advice. If you don't sleep with them, you lose them. Isn't that terrible to say to your own kid? Like, what? Sandy's mother always wanted her daughter to be just like her. She took pride in telling people that she was trying to clone herself. When Sandy went into recovery, she felt she had to fight her family's perception that she was a younger version of her mother. We were connected, my mother and I, but I had to ask all my relatives to please quit putting the burdens of her sins on me. Don't I know that? Showbiz moms are a classic example of engulfing mothers, the ones who shepherd their daughters through child beauty pageants or TV shows like Showbiz Moms and Dads. The ad for this show in a popular magazine contains the line, "Some parents want fame so badly," next to a picture of a mother pushing her little princess onto the stage. It makes you worry about how these experiences affect the minds of these young, manipulated children and what kind of young woman they will become. Oh, it's funny. The musical Gypsy features the quintessential engulfing mom. "Sing out, Louise," the mother says as her daughter is entertaining on stage. In the original movie version, Rosalind Russell plays Mama Rose, a flamboyant, extroverted, narcissistic mother with two daughters, Louise and June. Hey, B-Neck, whom she is pushing into show business. When the younger daughter, June, and Mama Rose thinks it, who Mama Rose thinks is more talented, marries and leaves home, Mama Rose, looking for another way to realize her own aspirations, focuses on the older daughter, Louise. The daughter's responses in this production are interesting. June eventually tires of being the cute one and runs away, and Louise rebels by becoming the famous stripper Gypsy Rose Lee. I don't think I've ever saw this musical or knew that the stripper's name was Gypsy Rose. That's funny. That is so funny. I had no idea that her name was even in this book when I thought about reading this book. So that's just kind of comical to me. Both daughters leave their mother with her dreams unrealized. Each one of us is imbued with a deep yearning to live our own life, not our mother's. Yet the narcissistic mother puts pressure on her child to act and react to the world as she would. A child raised in this way makes decisions according to what she believes will win her mother's love and approval. Accustomed to her mother's thinking for her, the girl has difficulty later on creating an authentic, healthy adult life for herself. Isn't that a coincidence? I had no idea that she was even going to talk about Gypsy Rose, but I think that that's funny. When this book was written, let's see, I think in 90, hold on. September 2009 was when it was published. Shauna, you're not late. I just got on at like 6 o'clock and we are reading the book, Will I Ever Be Good Enough? It's about healing the daughters of narcissistic mothers. So you're welcome to stay and hang out. I'm on chapter 3 now, and the previous 2 chapters are uploaded onto my YouTube channel if you want to start there and then come back to this later on. Mothers who ignore or underparent their daughters do not provide guidance, emotional support, or empathy. They consistently discount or deny your emotions, even if, as my mother instilled in me, I had a roof over my head, clothes to wear, food to eat. So, what was the problem? I was still in a lot of inner pain, as are other daughters with mothers who ignore them. The comedy drama Mermaids portrays an irresponsible, self absorbed mother, Cher, in this movie. Everything is about mom and her relationship, while her daughter's emotional worlds are empty. Some of the daughter's lines in this movie say it all. For example, "This is our mother, pray for us." "Mom is many things, normal is not one of them." And "Mom, I'm not invisible." If a girl is fortunate, she may find another adult who can help her recognize and validate her feelings and provide some measure of guidance. This person can be an emotional lifesaver. For instance, as Marie grew up, her mother refused to teach her about some pretty essential matters. When I started my period at age 13, I couldn't go to my mom. Whenever any sexual allusion came up, even on TV, she'd say, "Don't talk to me about sex. I don't want to discuss it." When I needed personal items, I had to call my sister or my teacher. My teacher was the one who explained menstruation to me. In my psychotherapy practice, I've seen case after case of mothers and daughters whose relationships look good on the outside, but inside the child is feeling deep pain, confusion, and distress. I honestly don't think that my mom ever told me about getting my period. Ever. Ever. I don't think so. I don't think she ever kind of warned me about anything or like helped guide me to any positive thing. Where was I at? I always tell children that I am a feelings doctor because I want to get the message to them right away that my office is a place to talk about feelings, which are so often ignored, devalued, or denied by their mothers. The children often learn more quickly than their parents how to discuss their feelings and to begin to heal. Ignoring behavior creates deep emotional gaps in a child's life that can go undetected for years, but physical abuse or neglect is more blatantly visible. When narcissistic parents are unable or unwilling to meet a daughter's most basic requirements to keep her physically safe, healthy, and in school, it shows. Oh, well, I think I got mine at like 12. And I used to like swing on the gymnastic bars. And I remember that I was doing this little trick like with my legs, and I was swinging around on one leg, and then I jumped up, and so I had kind of like the bar in between both of my legs like that. So I thought that I had like did that to myself. I thought that with the impact, because I did like that on the bar on my private, I thought when I did that that I hurt myself, and that's why I was bleeding. Like I had no idea that the reason why I was bleeding was because I got my period. I thought I genuinely like hurt, like bruised my vagina, and that I injured myself. Um, so yeah. And then when the bleeding didn't go away, I asked my sister, and she was like, I think that you started your period. And there wasn't anything in the house other than tampons. And I'm like, I'm not wearing a tampon. So like the very first time that I got my period, I was like shoving toilet paper, down there because I didn't want to put a tampon inside myself. My practice is full of abused and neglected kids. Working with these children has evolved as a specialty in my career, a way for me to give back and make a difference to suffering children. A piece of my heart needs to try to help little girls, especially those waiting to be adopted or who are living in foster homes, longing for mothers they don't have. I've had many children ask me to take them home, such as one darling 8-year-old who said, Dr. Carl, do you know how to cook? How many bedrooms do you have at your house? Do you have any toys? Then she quietly added, If I can come home with you, I will do the dishes every day and even wash all your windows. If if my profession did not have certain ethical rules to preclude this, I would have opened an orphanage in my home by now. One of my respected colleagues, Linda Vaughn, who also worked with abused and neglected children, wrote this poem after working intensely with a foster child who had been removed from her narcissistic mother's home. This should be interesting. I'm doing really good. I get all A's in school, and I don't cry at bedtime anymore. Though my new mom said I could. I remember how much you hate tears. You slapped them out of me to make me strong. I think it worked. I learned to use a microscope and my hair grew 2 inches. It's pretty just like yours. I'm not allowed to clean the house, only my own room. Isn't that a funny rule? You say kids are so much trouble getting born, they better pay it back. I'm not supposed to take care of the other kids, only me. I sort of like it. I still get the hole in my stomach when I do something wrong. I have a saying on my mirror, kids make mistakes. It's okay. I read it every day. Sometimes I even believe it. I wonder if you ever think of me or if you're glad the troublemaker is gone. I never want to see you again. I love you, Mommy. That's big. Sometimes these children have little to eat, live in filthy, unsanitary homes, have no medical care, or have been physically, sexually, or emotionally abused. Tragically, this sort of abuse and neglect is widespread, and although social services agencies are badmouthed on a daily basis, thank God they are there for these needy children. Madeline, an adorable 10-year-old, largely takes care of herself at home. Although she lives in a less than ideal situation, she carries a great deal of hope in her heart. My mom never cooks meals for us. We've never had one of those family meals you see on TV where the whole family is sitting around a table and eating together. I get my own meals, and I'm pretty good at cans of soup and mac and cheese. One day, Madeline decided to cook for her mother. She made some pretty good pasta and fruit cups for both of them. When little Madeline announced that dinner was ready, her mother told her that she was dieting and wasn't hungry. So, since I had set the table with two plates, Madeline relates with a confident tilt to her head. First, I filled my plate and ate all of that, and then I switched to her plate and filled it up and ate that too. I pretended she was there. I played both people. I even had a pretend conversation with her saying, well, how was your day? What did you do today? Isn't that sad? This, Katrina, this book is called Will I Ever Be Good Enough? Healing the Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers. Marion, 70, tells a horrendous story about what happened to her sister. My older sister disappeared when she was 16. Isn't it sad? Cool people, 5 of TikTok. I'm reading a book right now, so like um it's not the best time for me to have company on a live because I'm reading. If this was just a discussion, yeah, that would be fine, but I'm reading right now. And I want to make sure that we're like focused on the book and not distracted. My older sister disappeared when she was 16. One night, my brother went to pick her up from church and she wasn't there. For a year and a half, we looked for her. Then one day, the semi truck drove up and this big guy got out, followed by my sister and a baby. Then we learned my mom had run into him. He thought my sister was beautiful. He wanted her and asked how to get her. Mom said, give me $300 and you can take her off my hands. He bought her. Now my sister asks, why did my mom sell me? The guy was horrible to her, locked her in a closet while he was at work so she couldn't run away. He abused her. And when my dad found out, he wanted to kill the guy. And I thought he was not I'm sorry. And I thought he was going to unalive my mom too. I see an astounding number of ignoring parents in divorce cases. Since the court system operates on the basis of adversarial relationships, spouses usually end up squaring off on one side or the other. Professionals advising families during divorce proceedings generally work for either the mother or the father. In many parenting time proceedings, the discussion focuses not on what is the best interest of the child as the law dictates, but on what is the best for the parent. It is a sad commentary on our culture that many parenting time evaluators and judges listen more intently to what the parent wants than what is truly best for the child. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that sad that her mom sold her for $300? Like $300? You needed $300 so badly that you gave away your kid for it? Never. I'd never. I would just never do that. Never. Mm-mm. I don't care what I had to do. I would not sell my children. Like that's crazy. It is a sad commentary on our own culture that many parenting time evaluators and judges listen to what the parents want than what is truly best for the children. In Denver, there is even talk about which evaluator is for the father and which is for the mother. But what about being an advocate for the child? Divorce also sometimes leads one parent to turn a child against the other parent so he or she can have his way in the custody battle. This is a classic example of emotional child abuse that hurts the child so much more than these alienating parents realize. In these cases, parents may take care of the child physically, but completely disregard his or her emotional needs. Carrie's mother destroyed Carrie's relationship with her father when the two adults were going through a divorce. Mom was a crazy jealous of our time with our dad. She would say, "Go see your father and I will be fine." And then she would go into a depressive stupor for 10 days and make us feel guilty. It got so bad that we stopped seeing our dad because we didn't want to hurt our mom. Then he died suddenly and we couldn't even go to the funeral. We couldn't grieve his death in the presence of our mother because it bothered her so much. The behavior patterns of abusive, ignoring, and neglectful mothers are generally identifiable but grow much more complex and confusing when a narcissistic mother demonstrates a mix of both engulfing and ignoring behaviors. Let's look at the ways this particular combination plays out. The mix of engulfing and ignoring behaviors. Although my research suggests that most narcissists display one type preferential, I think preferentially per I can't pronounce that word. That's okay. The two styles are not mutually exclusive. A mother can flip from engulfing to ignoring and back. I'll type it in the chat so that you know what word I'm talking about. Maybe you can help me pronounce it. A mother can flip from engulfing to ignoring and back. And does the mother in the film Terms of Endearment, Aurora, Shirley MacLaine constantly examines her infant daughter to see if she's breathing. I wonder if this is where Gypsy got the name Aurora, if it's from this movie, Terms of Endearment. Isn't that crazy how her name is in this book and her daughter's name is in this book? Like, that's weird. That cannot be a coincidence. I bet she's read this fucking book. I bet she's read this book. She spent a lot of time in prison. 8 years in prison gives you a lot of time to read a lot of different books. I bet she's read this. When the baby cries, Aurora indicates her maternal. Oh, hold on. I skipped a sentence. Terms of Endearment, Aurora, the mother, Shirley MacLaine, constantly examines her infant daughter to see if she's breathing. She jiggles her baby, waking her abruptly to check. When the baby cries, Aurora indicates her maternal approval with a contented, "That's more like it," as she closes the door, leaving the baby crying alone in her crib. So she's like purposely waking the baby up to make the baby cry so she knows the baby is alive and then walks out. My mother exhibited both extremes with two different daughters, engulfing behavior with my sister and ignoring behavior with me. I believe her actions were related to where we were in birth order and where mom was in life. In a nutshell, she pressured me to grow up quickly to take care of her and help her with the rest of the family. And she tried to keep my sister a child by helping her with everything. I was the second to the oldest. My mother would say no to me and assume that I would figure things out. She would always do things for my sister, who was the baby, even when my sister was being irresponsible. While my mother gave me the message that I had to handle things on my own, she gave my sister the message that she could not handle anything without her intervention. Effective mothering strikes a proper balance between permissiveness and restraint. A girl who has been parented on that middle ground learns she can grow along with her talents and passions. Her feelings are acknowledged and treated with respect. But a girl who is raised outside that middle ground must overcome a painful set of a painful set of hurdles if she wants to enjoy healthy love relationships, make satisfying career choices, and someday be an effective, affectionate kind of parent herself. The six faces of maternal narcissism. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of me? Bette Midler as Cece Bloom in Beaches. My research has identified six types of narcissistic mothers, all within the engulfing, ignoring spectrum. I call them the six faces. As you explore the list, please understand that your mother can be primarily one type or a combination of several of these. In addition, the engulfing and ignoring mom can be interwoven into any of the following types. The flamboyant extrovert. The flamboyant extrovert is the mother about whom movies are made. She is a public entertainer, loved by the masses, but secretly feared by her intimate house partners and children. If you can perform in her show, too, all the better. If you can't, you'd better watch out. She is noticeably flashy, fun, and out there. Some love her, but you despise the outward masquerade she performs for the world. For you know that you don't really matter to her and her show, except in how you make her look to the rest of the world. Seeing how the world responds to her confuses you. You see that she doesn't offer the same warmth and charisma to you as a child as she does to others, to friends, colleagues, family, even to strangers. If she could only love me, then she could be whatever she wants to be and I wouldn't care, you feel. You desperately want her to know you and to let you be yourself too. Oh, thank you so much, Jess. Thank you for the gift. More often than not, these mothers lead charmed lives and want their daughters to fit in their social world and conform to the mold. Sherry's mother was a perfect example of this. She worked hard at getting attention. Her looks often changed as the weather. And for maximum dramatic effect, I don't recall ever seeing her natural hair color. Sherry, 55, said with a wry smile, she remembers her mother's different phases. In the early 60s, she had the Jackie O look with big hats. When the mod things came out, she had sunglasses and mini skirts. She was always in style, the center of attention. I always felt I didn't want to move into her territory. I remember being embarrassed about the hot pants and pantyhose under them, the white go-go boots and stiletto heels. She always took it a step beyond tacky. Somehow I think she knew she wasn't very authentic. She actually said she wanted the inscription on her tombstone, "Will the real Betty please stand up?" Amy had an eccentric, flamboyant mother whose charisma helped her get into and out of a lot of interesting situations. Her mother owned 144 pairs of shoes with matching purses and watches and was a self proclaimed psychic who once had her own cable TV show. A chronic liar and gossip, Amy's mother used to get together with the neighbors and give them psychic readings. One lady on our block decided that mom was Satan. She convinced the neighbors of that, so we got kicked out of the neighborhood. My mother's response was that people would short circuit if given too much spiritual information. She always had an excuse for things or tried to blame others. Lena's mom had a perfect venue in which to shine as the owner of a glamorous night spot. Lena smiles as she recalls how every evening her mother would dress up in a ball gown and go to her coffee house to play hostess. A one time blues singer who had spent time in Hollywood, Lena's mother claimed that she had sung with Desi Arnaz, partied with Frank Sinatra, and sat on Cary Grant's lap. To Lena, her mother is nothing but show. She likes to tell people who she knows. It's all about her image. She still does inappropriate stuff like dance around the room to get attention or make an entrance that will make notice. I've always thought it was strange that when I introduced her to my boyfriends, she would say, "I'm so glad they got to meet me." Doesn't this sound like somebody we know? The accomplished and oriented. The accomplished oriented mother, what you achieve in life is paramount. Success depends on what you do, not on who you are. She expects you to perform at the highest possible level. This mom is very proud of her children's good grades, tournament wins, admissions into the right college, and graduation with the pertinent degrees. She loves to brag about them too. But if you do not become what your accomplishment oriented mother thinks you should, and accomplish what she thinks is important, she is deeply embarrassed and may even respond with a rampage of fury and rage. A confusing dynamic is at play here. Often, while the daughter is trying to achieve a given goal, the mother is not supportive because it takes away from her and the time the daughter has to spend on her. Yet, if the daughter achieves what she set out to do, the mother beams with pride at the awards banquet or performances. What a mixed message. The daughter learns not to expect much support unless she becomes a great hit, which sets her up for low self esteem and an accomplishment oriented lifestyle. As little girl, Yasmin loved to ride horses, but her mother was reluctant to support this costly, time consuming passion. Yasmin's father helped her, though, working hard with her to teach her barrel racing, and her mother was furious with him. But success changed the family dynamic. When Yasmin won a blue ribbon at the kids' rodeo, Mom plastered the winning smile on her face and the bragging spree began. Yasmin remembers being confused and hurt. You're not late. I got on at like 7, but I mean 6 o'clock, but don't worry. Nobody knew I was gonna get on early. Carol grew up feeling controlled by her mother's ambition for her. She took 7 years of piano lessons where she had to play in recitals as well as for her mother's friends. I would be playing along and hear her snore if I made a mistake. I could feel her disappointment in me. I felt like I had to be perfect for her. When I was old enough to choose, I purposely flunked the test to the academy for piano where she wanted me to go. After that, I didn't touch the piano for 12 years. When I moved out and had my own home, I wanted a piano to play just for me. I still can't play in front of my mom. When I started therapy, I had to stop playing the piano again because it brought up all the old stuff with my mom. I still have a love hate relationship with the piano. Somehow the line between mom's benefit and my benefit got crossed. I was a trophy for her. And there's a lot of kids that feel like they're a trophy for their mom or dad. Like they're not actual people who have real feelings, that they're just there to present like a certain way. Eleanor's mother judged people solely on their educational accomplishments. First thing she always asked was where someone went to college. Harvard and Stanford people were the very best you could find. Then she wanted to know their degree level. MDs and the PhDs were outstanding. Anything less was not good enough. All her friends were doctors, so and so, or married to Dr. So and so. She didn't care what kind of people they were, or if they were even nice to her or us. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, exhaling a sigh of relief, and told me, "Thank God I made a few A's in my day and have a couple of degrees, because if not, she probably wouldn't even speak to me. Poor dad is only at the master's level. I don't know how he survived with her." Mia's mother obsessed about cleaning. She was psycho about it. Everything had to be perfect. Like, we clean the house before the maid comes. One thing is out of place and she notices and becomes ballistic. She is beyond a neat freak. My mom would throw out everything in my closet and make me color code my clothes. I would have to clean the bathroom 4 times until I did it perfectly. I think that's a little obsessive. I used to color code my clothes in my closet. But not because my mom wanted it that way, because everything else in our house was chaos. So I think that I felt like there was some sort of order to my space if things were neatly organized. So everything was either color coded, or you had like tank tops, short sleeve shirts, quarter length shirts, long sleeve shirts, sweaters, jackets, that sort of thing. Like, that's just how I had my closet organized. But again, that was for me, because nothing else in my home was organized. It was like chaos. In the film The Other Sister, the developmentally delayed daughter says to the narcissistic mother, "Mom, you don't look at me. You don't see me, not the real me. I don't want to play tennis or chess or be an artist. I want to be me. I can't do those things, but I can love." What a powerful message. The psychosomatic mother uses illness and aches and pains to manipulate others to get her way. This is Gypsy and her mom right here. And to focus attention on herself. She cares little for those around her, including her daughter or their needs. If your mother was like this, the only way you were able to get attention from her was to take care of her. Actually, maybe this is what was going on at like the end of Dee Dee's life. Who knows? Mom would play the victim by becoming more ill or have an illness related crisis to redirect your attention and make you feel guilty. I think that that's more along the lines of Gypsy right there. I don't think that her mother was like pretending to be sick. I think that Gypsy was pretending to be sick to get that attention by her mom. I think if she didn't play sick, then her mom wasn't doting on her every second of every day. I call this the illness control method. It is very effective. If the daughter does not respond, she looks bad and feels like a loser who can't be nice to her mother. Just flip that around. The most important thing to the psychosomatic mother is that her daughter be there to care for her and understand her. Many times, the psychosomatic mother uses her illness to escape from her feelings, or from having to deal with the difficulty of life. The daughter will commonly hear from her father or other family members, "Don't tell your mother, it will upset her or make her sick." Exactly. I think this entire situation, just flip it around to where it's Gypsy and Gypsy being sick rather than the mother. Some daughters learn that being sick themselves brings some attention from their psychosomatic mothers, because illness provides a common bond. The mother can relate to illness and is able to communicate about it with the daughter. But the daughter must be careful not to be sicker than her mother, because then the mother will not feel cared for, which she feels entitled to. While migraine headaches are genuinely debilitating, May's mother used them as a way of escaping problems in the household. Isn't it interesting? Oopsie. Thank you for liking the live. Make sure you're double tapping the screen, everyone on TikTok. Uh, While migraine headaches are genuinely debilitating, May's mother used them as a way of escaping problems in the household and would not take care of herself in ways that can help prevent migraines. For instance, she never dealt with her stress, a common trigger for migraines, and allowed herself to become upset by many things. Mom was not able to deal with anything. She would instantly get a headache and have to be run to the emergency room for some shot that would knock her out for days on end. Then Dad and I would have to deal with whatever it was that was a problem. It was her escape. This continued throughout May's young adulthood. I remember one time telling her that I was dating a much younger man, and it was like the headache came on so suddenly, neither of us knew what hit her. I guess she didn't like that. Irene was blamed for her mother's inability to deal with stress. Whenever anything went wrong at home, Dad would say, "Look at what you've done to your mother." Mom would end up in the bedroom sobbing and have a headache and diarrhea and be on the toilet for hours, and then come out to the couch with a rag on her head and be all sad. Dad would come to her rescue and blame us, saying she handles stress so badly. Irene needed recognition for herself, but learned that if I don't live up to her expectations, she gets aches and pains and cold sores on her mouth, develops weird rashes, and makes herself sick from emotional stress. Everything had to be about her. Jackie's mother's behavior got worse as she and Jackie's father got older and he began to get sick. Mother always had to be sicker than Daddy was. If I gave Daddy attention because something was wrong, she always had to up the illness. Once she faked a heart attack. I can't count the number of times she called me at work and I rushed over there to find out nothing was wrong with her. Kimber, come lay down. The one time I didn't come over after I called, she didn't speak to me for days, said I never cared for her, and wrote me nasty letters. Mona cried during therapy as she discussed her father's hip surgery, which was hard for him because he was aging and weak. But she really was crying because the whole time Dad was going through this, my mother said her hip hurt and she needed hip surgery too. She couldn't let the attention be on him. It was so sick. Her hips were just fine. As soon as Dad recovered, we never heard about her hips again. Isn't that crazy? The things that people will go to in order to get attention is just wild. Celeste tells me my mom just did a lot of groaning. When she got up or sat down or walked across the room, she just groaned. She had no physical reason to do this. It just seemed to be her way of getting everyone in the room to look at her and ask if she was okay. I can see that. Just like, ugh, 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 just walking, like, like something's hurting, but not really, just to make sure everyone is like looking at her. You know what I'm saying? The Addicted. In Rebecca Wells' novel, Divine Secrets of the Yaga Sisterhood, Sita describes the sound of her mother's voice as the cacophony of 5 jiggers of bourbon. Although 2,000 miles apart, Sita could hear the ice cubes clinking as she talks to her mother on the phone. She then says if anyone ever made a movie about her childhood, that would be the soundtrack. The parent with a substance abuse problem will always seem narcissistic because the addiction speaks louder than anything else. Sometimes, when an abuser sobers up, the narcissistic behavior goes away. Keep that in mind, you guys. Sometimes not. But while users are using, their focus is always on themselves and their God, the addiction. Children of alcoholics and other substance abusers know this well. The bottle or the drug of choice always comes before anything or anyone else. Substance abuse is an effective way to mask feelings. Clearly, the mother who shows up drunk at her daughter's choir concert is not thinking of her daughter's needs. Hannah had to fend for herself most of her childhood. For years, my mother was hooked on Tylenol with codeine and Valium, totally checked out. By the time I was 10, she had been married 7 times. We moved around with lots of different men. When Hannah was 14, her mother told her that she wanted to unalive herself. Hannah pleaded with her not to do it, telling her mother that I needed her and that I couldn't survive without her. Hannah stops for a moment when she tells the story. Her pain is palpable. She did it anyway. She on her own hand. I always lost. First, a mom who was there but not there, and then a mom who unalived herself. After her mother's unaliving, Hannah lived in a trailer park and continued to go to school. She did well until her junior year in high school when she began to call herself in sick to school and started getting HIGH on drugs and alcohol. Julia's mother was a party girl almost every night. We lived in a neighborhood with lots of single parents when I was growing up, and they all partied. My mom loved to throw the party at our house so she didn't have to get a babysitter, and I became one of those moral kids. I hated the drinking, smoking, dirty stories, swearing, etc. I used to complain about it to my mom and her boyfriend. They got sick of it, so they used to humiliate me by calling me Queenie. When they were planning the next party, Mom would say, "We're having a wild." I knew that was going to happen. Hold on, you guys, because somebody blocked me on TikTok or reported me on TikTok. I might have to hang up on TikTok and come back. I think that's what I'll do. And let me see which one it violates. It said that some of the themes may have been uncomfortable. I don't see how that is possible, but we will just start again. Okay, where was I at? When they were planning the next party, Mom would say, "We're having a wild party tonight, Queenie, so you can go to your room where you won't be bothered." That was my mom. The addicted narcissistic mother's mantra is best described by Billie Holiday: smoke, drink, never think. The secretly mean narcissistic mother does not want others to know she is abusive to her children. She usually has a public self and a private self, which are quite different. Daughters of the secretly mean describe their mothers as being kind, loving, and attentive when out in public, and abusive and cruel at home. It is hard not to feel significant resentment toward your mother for this, especially if she fooled a lot of people outside the family. If you had this mother, you know how awful this inconsistent behavior feels. In church, your mother has her arm around you and gives you some gum from her purse with a warm smile. At home, when you ask for the gum or reach out to her, you get slapped and demeaned. This mother is capable of announcing in public, "I'm so proud of my daughter. Isn't she beautiful?" And then saying at home, "You really should lose some weight. Your hair is a mess and you dress like a SLUT." These unpredictable opposite messages are crazy making. Veronica's mother was a saint in public, but angry and abusive at home. Whatever she was feeling was the center of the universe, and all life had to stop to abide by it. I promise, I think that Gypsy's read this book because there's some things that she says in interviews that literally mimic exactly what we're reading in the book. So to me, it's kind of like she's taken some of these facts from the book and kind of molded them to fit her own life and narrative. Veronica's mother was a saint in public, but angry and abusive at home. Whatever she was feeling was the center of the universe, and all life had to stop to abide by it. If she had a headache or the blues, we walked on eggshells. Her feelings dominated everything. My feelings were minimized, to put it mildly, and I learned that mine didn't hold a candle to hers. She would always say, "If you only knew, you think you got it bad." But whenever we went out somewhere, she acted all loving and really fake. Our battles were inside the home and nobody saw them. Robin's mother's behavior confused her. As a kid, I had always adored my mom and felt she was on my side. But when my brother and I became teenagers, she used to tell us how awful we were. "Don't ever have children," she would say. Robin's mother told her stories about how she tried to abort Robin by throwing herself down the stairs and taking certain drugs. She probably would have aborted my brother, Robin tells me, but my father was ready to be sent to war. And in those days, if you were pregnant, they wouldn't draft your husband. Since her mother had had three before and one miscarriage, she called Robin and her brother her live births. What was so strange, though, is that in front of others, she always talked about how she loved children and how she tried so hard to have the ones she did and what a miracle we were. Haley relished the freedom of being away from her secretly mean mother after she got married. Mom didn't like my husband. She didn't want to see us, and it was great until one time I decided to go visit her. She was doing caretaking for an elderly lady in the neighborhood, and she would actually say malicious things under her breath about this poor old lady. I went out to lunch with them. The lady was hard of hearing, but it still bothered me that she would say things about this lady right in front of her. Do you think she could move any effing slower? It was so mean. It reminded me of what I had lived with my whole life. There is a nice side and a dark side of my mother. Once this old lady passes, she will project onto the rest of us again. This poor old lady is getting it now. The emotionally needy. While all narcissistic mothers are emotionally needy at some level, some show this characteristic more openly than others. These mothers wear their emotions on their sleeve and expect their daughters to take care of them. A losing proposition for children who are expected to calm their mothers, listen to their adult problems, and solve problems with her. That was my mom, I believe. Um, I was always expected to like fix what was going on in her life. If she was hungover, I was expected to, you know, cook her food and tend to her while she was hungover. Where was I at? Of course, these children's feelings are neglected, and you are unlikely to get anywhere near the same nurturance that you are expected to provide. Yvette's mother knows how to up the ante. When Yvette tells her she's tired from working all week, her mother says, "Darling, you don't know what it is to be tired." Then her mother goes into a tirade about how exhausting her day was. Rarely can Yvette match her mother's story, so she just gives up telling her anything and listens. Yvette has learned not to discuss her own feelings because it is too hurtful. I just ask her how she is and let it go at that. She seems to get less worked up this way. A classic example of an emotionally needy mother is portrayed in the recent film The Mother. I don't know that I've ever seen that. I don't think I've ever heard of it, but if you've heard of it, let me know. In this dramatic screenplay written by Hanif Kureishi, the daughter Paula feels empty, can't figure out what to do with her life and career, and has never felt loved or valued by her mother. The daughter is attracted to needy men, having been accustomed to trying to please her mother. Her self absorbed mother, May, begins to show the depth of her neediness when her husband dies and blatantly has an affair with a carpenter with whom the daughter is madly in love. This mother has no compassion or concern for her daughter's feelings and would have justified her actions by saying that she was grieving and the affair made her feel better. Movie critic Michael Wilmington says it well. Self absorption is the vice of these characters, that not sex is their sin. Hey Jody, I'm reading the book called "Will I Ever Be Good Enough?" It's a book about healing the daughters of narcissistic mothers. It's been pretty good so far. We're on chapter 3. The other 2 chapters are on my YouTube if you want to start there, or you can just listen in. Now that you've had this inside look at many different types of narcissistic mothers, it is important to emphasize a few things. First of all, our mothers weren't born this way. They most likely faced insurmountable barriers to love and empathy when they were children. In part 3 of this book, one of your challenges will be to explore your mother's background so that you will have a deeper understanding of the reasons for her behavior. This does not take away your pain, but it allows you to empathize and forgive her to a degree that will help your recovery. No narcissist operates in a vacuum. In the next chapter, we'll do some family study and take a look at the rest of the narcissistic nest. Give me a sec. Okay, so if we start on chapter 4, let me see. Chapter 4 is a little bit longer. It's 16 pages. I don't know if we should continue on. Yeah, maybe we should. I think it'll be okay. It's only 7. That's why I started a little earlier. So hopefully we could get through a couple of more chapters. So this is chapter 4, and chapter 4 is Where is Daddy? The rest of the narcissistic nest. The narcissistic family often resembles the proverbial shiny red apple with a worm inside. It looks great until you bite into it and discover the worm. The rest of the apple may be just fine, but you've lost your appetite. The family with a narcissistic mother operates according to an unspoken set of rules. Children learn to live with those rules, but they never stop being confused or pained by them. For these rules block children's emotional access to their parents. They are basically invisible, not heard, seen, or nurtured. Tragically, conversely, this set of rules allows the parents to have no boundaries with the children and to use and abuse them as they see fit. Sounds awful, doesn't it? Where is Daddy? Daddy, why didn't you protect me? Where were you when I needed you? Why did you always have to stick up for Mom? What about me? These exclamations came from Marcy when we were doing an empty chair exercise in therapy. She imagined her father in the empty chair and talked to him about the family and how it hurt her to be so alone and so unloved. Her questions are among those commonly put to fathers by daughters of narcissistic mothers. Where were you? From my research and experience, the answer is clear. Father is revolving around mother like a planet around the sun. The narcissist needs to be married to a spouse who will allow her to be at the center of all the action. That is how it has to be if the marriage is to survive. In the family drama, the narcissist is the star. In the In the family drama, the narcissist is the star, and her spouse takes on the supporting role. A man gets himself into this situation for many reasons, but for our discussion, the most pertinent point is that he is the kind of person who accepts this behavior from his spouse and most of the time enables her. Perhaps he doesn't always want to be, but he does, because he has learned over time that this is what works with her. Because the father focuses on his wife, his pact with the mother can make him look like a narcissist too. He is unable to attend to the needs of his daughter. My father always jumped to do my mother's bidding, said 40-year-old Erica as she described her father's role during her childhood. Mom was the boss, and dad centered his life on her. He actually worshiped the ground she walked on. We could be watching television, and the commercial would come on about ice cream. Mom would say, "Wow, that looks good," and dad would head to the garage and to go to the store to get it. He jumps at her command. She uses this as control in her relationship. She picks up the time, and many times it's when he wouldn't typically want to go anywhere or when he is watching football. If I confront her on this, she asks, "Does your father look unhappy?" Danielle's father used to blame her for every argument she and her mother had, and there were lots of them. If we got into an argument about cleaning my room, for example, she would be extremely emotional, end up crying, and then dad would step in and say, "Look what you've done. Look at how you've made your mom feel." It's always become something about her rather than what's going on with me. Claire, 41, reports that her mother controlled the entire household, including but not limited to her father. When mom didn't talk to her, neither did dad. Mom was an alcoholic, often passed out on the couch when we got home from school. I wouldn't say anything until I picked up the vibe in my house. My oldest brother finally got up the courage to tell my dad that mom was drunk all the time. My brother looked up drunk in the thesaurus and tried to make it sound better by using words like inebriated. But dad slapped him and said, "Don't talk about your mother that way." He always defended her. Carmen's father's role as his wife's protector is paramount. Quiet. In some ways, quiet. His needs don't matter either. I used to worry about that, but now I be quiet. Now I see this is what keeps them together. They need each other to play out their dysfunctional roles and survive emotionally in this world. I don't really care if that's what works for them, but it did affect me. What about me? What do I matter? When Carmen was, thanks Harrison for liking the live. When Carmen was in recovery, she tried to talk to her mother about her upbringing. As soon as she had gotten out the words, Carmen's father jumped in to defend her mother. Carmen felt doubly discounted. Then her mother added insult to injury by saying, "Isn't he wonderful? He is the best husband anyone could ever have." Carmen said, "The very thought that maybe this is about me, not her or her husband, would never cross either of their minds. They typically go on about how wonderful their marriage has been and how happy they are with each other. I somehow want to remind them about the many times that dad secretly told me he wanted to run off with another woman. They just live in denial and pretend." I think that when you're with a narcissist like that, you kind of have to play pretend. Maybe that's why Gypsy likes Ken so much, because he literally plays pretend with her. Like they're feeding off one another and they're both enabling the other's bad habits. This unspoken agreement between parents who share a narcissistic nest is strong and impenetrable to anyone, but especially a daughter who is seen as competition by her mother. Obviously, Carmen had gained insight from her significant recovery work, but even so, the pain of this memory still brought her to tears. Tragically, parental denial is what keeps the family together, for better or worse, and many families do not choose to confront their problems even though they hurt their children. Someday, Carmen will be able to tell this story and not feel the pain that was so present that day. Though she is unlikely to be able to change her parents' relationship, she can lessen its effect on her and her life. Modeling a healthy love relationship is one of the most important things that a parent can do. Children who grow up with unhealthy models are more likely to have some difficulty with love relationships as adults. Children learn far from what they see parents do than from anything parents preach to them. In part two, we look at the love relationships of daughters of narcissistic mothers and discuss the many effects of unhealthy parental relationships. The emotional health of daughters of narcissistic mothers is in effect sacrificed so that their father can keep the peace with his wife. A daughter's first steps in recovery involve voicing the devastating feelings of vulnerability and helplessness that this generates. 19-year-old Kristen sadly reports, "I wonder why I was born. Why did God give me to her when she didn't want me? I remember thinking I can't live through this, but I did. I don't feel pretty. I have low self esteem, and I can't give myself credit for anything. My dad loved me and tried to protect me, but he couldn't really do it with mom being so abusive. He had to do what she wanted to stay married to her." Linda, 26, reported an interesting indifference between the ways her biological father and her stepfather dealt with her mom. "My stepdad has to circle his life around her, and that keeps her and them happy. He listens to her moodiness and her whining, whereas my real dad was an alcoholic and drank to numb it all out." Most daughters report that if they did have good relationships with their fathers, their mothers were intensely jealous of them. Candace tells a heart-trending story about the period when her father was dying of Parkinson's disease. "Daddy was lying on the bed in a hospital, and I was lying next to him. It was truly the last hours of his life. Mom got mad that I was so close that to him that she asked me to move. And she then took my place next to my dad. It was so sad to me because it felt like he was the only person who really loved me. Years later, we were chatting about family dynamics, and mom informed me that she had to adjust the financial inheritance from dad. She told me she gave me less than the other kids because I got so much from dad when he was alive." I've heard some stories where this has happened, and like the dad had a really good relationship with one of the daughters and like gave all the money to the daughter rather than the mother. Like, so obviously the mom was definitely jealous that when the dad died, the daughter got all the money. She told me she gave, okay, sorry, I already read that. Paula's father always wanted to carry her around. Hey.
Do we not have any more magic erasers?
Mm-mm. There's like one in my bathroom, but it's used. You can still use it though, because you can use it until it's like totally gone. You, if you want to use it and try to finish it off, I'll buy some more. You see it? There's still a good bit left on it. You're welcome. And that was my daughter. Paula's father always wanted to carry her around. I was a daddy's girl. Mom would always say, "Put her down, let her walk," in an angry tone. I was only about 3 years old, and my mom was angry with me for taking my dad's attention. She wanted it all. Wendy and her father bonded so well that she grew up to follow his footsteps. She also kept herself far away from her mother. She relays this story. Mom was so jealous of my relationship with my dad. He was a medical doctor, and I was in med school too. I could relate to him better, and he had empathy. Wendy has few points of connection with her mother and her mother's life choices. She was a housewife and didn't understand the whole education thing. I used to like go hunting and fishing with my dad to hang out with him and talk to him, and she hated that. She always said, "Go ask your dad. He is the smartest one around here. He's the one who's buying you the BMW." Many girls discover that when alone with their fathers, they were able to connect on a deeper and different level and discover their father's capacity to love them, even in small doses. This kind of nurturing made a difference. Hold on, let me read this comment. Yeah, I think you're right, Dare to be different. Once I realized that my mom was a narcissist, I did try to deal with it and like try to get her to understand what it was that I was going through and like how I was affected by her choices. And it didn't seem like she was very empathetic to what I went through, and just expected for me for like a vague apology to be good enough. And I didn't feel like that vague apology was good enough. Like I felt like I needed more, and for her to like really apologize for what she did. But I think a lot of her actions she probably didn't even remember doing because she was so heavily intoxicated that when you're drunk all the time, you just don't know what it is that you do. You know what I'm saying? So I think that some of the things she might not remember. Hey, girl. Yeah, I'm doing good. I hope you are too. Some of the things she may not remember, but I think she also used that as like a crutch to not recognize and admit the things that she had done so she could kind of play off like, "Oh, I don't remember, I was drunk, blah blah blah, whatever." And so once I realized that she wasn't going to take accountability for her actions, I just completely cut her off. It is very rare for a narcissist to change depending on the level of their narcissism. Like I mentioned when we first started reading this book, everyone has a small bit of narcissism in them. Some people have very small amounts and some people have large amounts. It depends on how much empathy you actually are able to feel, will kind of determine how where you are on the spectrum of narcissism, because The most narcissistic people literally have no empathy. They are not able to feel in the way that, a normal person would feel. They don't, they can't comprehend what we feel. And therefore, they never see things the way that we do, because in their eyes, everyone is like them, or not like them, but everyone is beneath them. So they don't see every other people as equals. Narcissism is definitely a spectrum. My mother's definitely at the tippy top too. That's where Gypsy's at the top. Now we're going to talk a little bit about brothers. I didn't have a brother, so I don't know much about this topic, but if you had a brother, let me know what you feel about this small bit of information. It says boys seem to have a different kind of relationship with their mother. Just about every daughter of a narcissistic mother, yeah, just about every daughter of a narcissistic mother has reported to me that her brothers or brother were treated better, liked, and more favored than she or her sisters were. Daughters consistently report how hurtful this has been. So, those moms on TikTok that are like, oh, you don't know real love until you have a son, until you know what I'm saying? Like, until you birth a boy, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what that's like. I have a boy and I have a girl, and there have been times where they're treated differently, but not so much where my daughter is like thrown out to the pasture because I'm treating her brother better. Like that, no, that's not ever happened and will never happen. Typically, the mother appears not to notice the imbalance, or if confronted, denies it, but it does make some sense. Her sons are not threatening to her in relation to the father as another girl or woman is, because the boys are not as much an extension of her as is the daughter. Yeah, so she definitely, um it sounds to me like she definitely treated your brother like, you know, they were better. Yes. And that's the reason why. Okay. So y'all know about this. I don't know about this because I didn't have any brothers. So I'm really everyone is saying the same thing. You all are saying the same thing, that the boys were basically the golden child. An exception to this can occur when the brother gets married and brings a daughter in law into the equation, who can begin to feel the brunt of mom's jealousy. In mom's eyes, she's a competitor, and the two of them may compete for the son's attention. His mother may have been the center of his life before, but his new bride steps into that role. Mother should take a back seat, which is virtually impossible for her. My heart always aches for the wives of men with narcissistic mothers. They don't really know what they are getting themselves into. Mm. So your brother, Marilyn, so your brother had a disability and used that to gain attention from the public, therefore doted on your brother more than you because he was seen as more important because of his disability. I see that. I can see that. Jillian's brothers got special treatment, and at times it was quite inappropriate. Their mother was seductive with them. Oh, that's gross. She paraded around the house half naked, and when they were teenagers, talked to them about how to be good lovers. That is inappropriate. Inappropriate. Lisa had 5 brothers who could do no wrong in mother's eyes. She adored them. They worked on a farm, they bought her gifts, and worshiped everything they bought for her. They catered to my mother, and she loved that. Even today, they would blame my father for the way my mom acted. They always stuck up for her and she for them. She really brainwashed them. Having sons on a farm was a big plus. Girls were not as important. She even went to extremes to keep my brothers out of the service. She would say things like, they were needed on the farm, anything to keep them from leaving. For me, on the other hand, she couldn't wait until I grew up, got married, and moved away. Isn't that gross, Kathleen? Mirabelle's mother wrote a letter to her after visiting her for a few days. I admire your brother Gerald as he knows what it's like to know God. Perhaps you'd like to know, and your brother Craig is such a good, hard-working family man. His children are the delight of the family. We always feel welcome in our son's home. We don't have to walk on eggshells or worry about what we say. It's always a great time. Coming to your perfect house is such a strain, my dear. I must say that you take after your paternal grandmother. She always thought she was right. You seem to follow her path. Mirabelle brought this letter to therapy. She was wondering what it all meant. Why are my brothers being favored so? What have I done wrong? What does she mean, your perfect house? Is she jealous of me? Why is she saying that I take after the grandmother whom I detested, and so did she? She is so hateful. God, it hurts. She doesn't like my sister either. She recently started a letter to my sister with Dear Mandy. I only say dear because I carried you in my womb. That's hurtful. Amelia had one brother who was the king to their mother. He was 2 years older than I and was put on a pedestal, the trophy boy. Mom related to him and wanted attention from him. A lot of her energy went to him. In adulthood, it became crazier, and he became really rich. If my sisters or I would invite her over, she would dump us if my brother had invited her over too. For many, the playing field between brothers and sisters has never been level. Victoria reports, my brother is 18 now. I basically raised him, and I really love him. He calls me when he is in trouble or needs emotional support. But I have to say, he got the preferential treatment from my mom. My brother makes C's, and she doesn't care. If I made an A minus, it was a big deal. I got a scholarship to law school. It was expected of me. I always had curfews, but my brother did not. He came he can come in completely drunk and she doesn't care. She'll offer to make him breakfast. My brother got arrested this week outside a bar and she thought it was funny. He can drink and act crazy and she says boys will be boys. He dates a Hooters waitress and that is okay, but she hates my medical school boyfriend. My mother constantly defends my brother and criticizes me. I don't know anything about that. I've had over the last year, my son has gotten to some situations, drinking, driving, getting into fights and things like that. And I put my foot down and was like, no, this is not happening. And if you're going to behave this way, you're not welcome here. Because I have to protect my daughter. And I wouldn't say that, but drunk guys, they do shit. They do shit that is inappropriate. And you never know what they will do until they do it to you. And no, it's not happening in my home. There's a lot more awareness now, Dare to Be Different. A lot more awareness now. And I think that it's because everyone is going to therapy and we're all trying to figure out like what the fuck did I experience as a child and why. And I also think that our parent, like my mom, I was born in the 80s, so the parents that were born in like the 70s and earlier, they're I don't know, just naturally narcissistic. I I don't know if it's naturally narcissistic or if they just, I don't know what it is. But it seems like that entire generation of people are entitled and feel like everything should revolve around them. Every Christmas throughout their childhood, Liz's brother would get twice the number of presents she did. Now, this is something that I've always had to like be really conscious about because my son's birthday is Christmas Day and my daughter's birthday is 2 weeks prior to Christmas. So I had to pay really close attention to making sure that however many presents I got him for birthday and Christmas, that I did the same for her. And because her presents were always split up, and she got her birthday presents before on her birthday and then got Christmas presents on Christmas. So she always didn't have as many presents to open up on Christmas as he did, but his birthday and his Christmas presents were together, and that's why. So, but I always made sure that the birthday presents were the same amount and the Christmas presents were the same amount. Like nobody got more than the other. Furthermore, her mother tried to set up competition between the two siblings when the packages were counting. Sorry, when they were counted. Guess who lost? It has been surprising to me that most of the daughters I have interviewed or treated have not felt intense resentment toward their brothers. How do you guys feel? Do you guys feel resentful towards your brother or no? Because she's saying that a lot of the women who had brothers didn't feel resentful of their brothers. So let me know what you feel. Most of them are grateful that the brothers are getting some maternal attention, even if they do not themselves receive it. You were not, that's good. It seems to help the daughter if her brother can break out of their own denial to see the real problems between their mother and sister. The daughter can then feel some validation. Okay. Do I watch Skibbity Toilet? I don't think so. I don't know who that is. Skibbity Toilet? I have no idea what that is. Tara had never gotten a fair shake from either her father or brother. Both of them always blamed Tara for her relationship. Your brothers, Kathleen, is that what you're saying? Or your parents? Oh, your parents? Was that what you're asking? Both of them always blamed Tara for her difficult relationship with her mom. She was 45 years old when her brother finally said to her, "What in the world is wrong with you and mom and your relationship since like birth?" She had waited a long time but finally felt validated. He is now able to see there is a problem, and that means the world to me. It makes me feel less crazy. Maybe it's your computer. When two daughters are being raised by the same narcissistic mother, I found that more times than not, they take on very different roles. Both girls internalize the same message that they are valued for what they do rather than who they are, but they behave in opposite ways. One sister may internalize the message and say, "Okay, I will show you what I can do and how worthy I am," and become an overachiever and a perfectionist. The other sister may internalize the message of inferiority and give up. Feeling that she can't make the grade anyway, she becomes the underachiever or engages in some kind of lifelong self sabotage. We will explore this phenomenon more in part two when we discuss life patterns of daughters of narcissistic mothers. The most important part of this is to remember is that even though the external landscapes I described seem like polar opposites, the internal landscapes are strikingly similar. In other words, the lifestyles of the women may appear quite different, as the high achieving daughter will look more successful on the outside, but on the inside, both sisters hear the same negative, internalized message and struggle emotionally. If there is only one girl in the family, she tends to take one of the polar extremes and becomes either high achieving or self sabotaging. What causes a daughter to take the high achieving path versus the self sabotaging path? I have wondered a lot about this. And according to my clinical study, the high achieving daughter usually had someone special in her life who gave her unconditional love and support, typically the father, an aunt, grandmother, or teacher. The self sabotaging daughter either had no one to nurture her or had only limited access to an adult who served that role during her childhood. My sister and I took extreme polar opposite paths, perhaps because when my sister was very young, we moved away from our grandmother, who was a loving presence for me in my early years, offering encouragement and nurturing. My sister missed this special loving connection with our grandmother and has struggled more in certain areas of her life than I have. But we have both definitely fought the same internal critical messages instilled in us. Daughters of narcissistic mothers seems to relate to extremes in all aspects of their lives and seem overly tolerant of aberrant and unusual behavior, which of course their mothers often exhibited. I even thought at one point that the title of this book might be Women of Extremes. A quick overview of what we have learned so far exhibits the extremes that daughters of narcissistic mothers have learned to live with. Narcissism itself causes a person to swing from grandiose feelings of deep depression, almost like bipolar disorder. As a spectrum disorder, narcissism can range from a few traits to full blown narcissistic personality disorder. Maternal narcissism takes the extreme of engulfing or ignoring. Daughters of narcissistic mothers seem to favor opposite ends of a continuum of life patterns, either success oriented and high achieving or self sabotaging. Daughters' relationships with men tend to be either codependent or dependent. The shiny red apple with the worm inside. Narcissistic families are disconnected emotionally. They may appear solid on the exterior, but authentic communication and connections between the members rarely take place because the parents in this family are focused on themselves. They expect the children to react to their needs instead of the other way around. As in a healthy family, in this dysfunctional system, adults do not deal with real feelings and therefore do not meet the emotional needs of the children. In a healthy family, the parents are emotionally connected, happy with each other, in control of the family, and at the top of a hierarchy. Their job is to take care of the children who look up to them for support and protection. The parents shine love down on the children and strive to meet their needs physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. A diagram of the healthy family adapted from the structural family therapy model looks like this. And I'll go over it too in just a second. So it shows the mother and the father at the top. Boundaries around parents' relationships. Mother and father are bonded with each other. And then children are all at the same level. Needs of children are being met. And then we go to the boundary around a single parent is a hierarchy, and then all the children are on the same level and everyone's needs are being met. That's in a healthy family model, but we all know that there's not a lot of healthy family models out there. I haven't met one that's healthy. I don't know. You can tell me if you have. In unhealthy families, this hierarchy becomes skewed, and the parents end up taking care. I'm sorry, and the children end up taking care of the parents. Oh, Marilyn says her mother is now on her sixth husband. Tells you how healthy hers was. I want to say my mom ended up having like they weren't necessarily husbands; they were just like men in her life. We'll go with seven. In unhealthy families, this hierarchy becomes skewed, and the children end up taking care of the parents. In a family with a narcissistic mother, everybody attends to the mother, and the other family members' needs are not met. In the narcissistic family, the mother is at the center of the system, with the rest of the family revolving around her. Like the planets revolving around the sun, as in this diagram below. It's kind of hard for you guys to see it on YouTube. My camera isn't in great focus. This diagram displays mother's self absorption and father's pact to take care of her. The unspoken rule in these families is that they do not discuss this dynamic and it becomes a family secret. In order to maintain the peace, the children have to keep quiet and not rock the boat. They fear abandonment, which causes them to mask their real feelings and pretend that everything is okay, a survival mechanism. In doing so, they do not learn to express or even be in touch with their feelings. And they are thus set up for many interpersonal difficulties later on in life. When children can't rely on their parents to meet their needs, they cannot develop a sense of safety, trust, or confidence. Trust is a colossal development issue. Without the learning of trust in our early years, we are set up to have a major handicap in believing in ourselves and feeling safe in intimate connection. Daughters who grew up in narcissistic families uniformly report a lack of confidence in their own decision making as well as difficulty with assuredness in their love relationships. In the recovery section of this book, we will examine what can be done about this void in development. Spade, I'm reading the Will I Ever Be Good Enough? Healing the Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers book. Marilyn, I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. The cover of the book. Okay, hold on. Oh, let me This is the name of the book. Okay. It is important to understand, however, that resolving trust complications will be a lifelong recovery task. Oftentimes, when mother is narcissistic, she may be able to do some of the early nurturing because she has control of the infant and small child and can mold the child to her wishes. But as the child grows older and develops a mind of her own, the mother loses control and no longer has the same kind of power. This causes the mother to begin her demeaning critical behavior with the child in hopes of regaining that control, which is crazy making for the daughter. Even if she learned a modicum of trust as an infant, she begins to unlearn it as she grows older, as she makes natural, reasonable demands on her mother who is unable to meet them. The mother becomes resentful and threatened and projects her inadequacies onto the daughter. She begins to focus on the daughter's failings rather than on her own limited ability to parent effectively. You may remember the characteristics of the narcissistic mother in chapter 1 included a sense of entitlement. This means the narcissist thinks she deserves the best, the most important treatment, being the first in line, being treated with extraordinary efforts, and so on. It also means that her daughter will not be able to have a sense of entitlement because there is never enough room for both. Adult feelings of entitlement are unhealthy and dysfunctional, yet, as small, helpless, dependent child, we are entitled to be cared for. Every child deserves to have someone in her life who is irrationally crazy about her. We gradually grow out of this entitlement and dependency and learn to take care of and solely and rely on ourselves emotionally. Sorry. Which is a sign of stable mental health. In order to take good care of ourselves as we move through life, girls need to develop sound boundaries between themselves and others. They also need to be able to state what they need in relationships. The daughters of a narcissistic mother do not get to do this, particularly if those needs interfere with what the mother wants. This then causes the daughter to repress her feelings and needs, deny herself, and learn to be fake. Without healthy boundaries, all relationships become skewed in some way. Setting healthy boundaries requires direct statements and clear communication. Narcissistic families commonly have a skewed, ineffective communication style called triangulation. And I will talk about triangulation in another video, but triangulation is definitely a topic that we need to discuss because there's a lot of nuance with triangulation. And if you don't understand what triangulation is and how manipulators use triangulation, you will not even know what's happening. You will not know that you are being triangulated and that you are being manipulated emotionally to react a certain way based on what this person is saying. So it's really important. So we'll talk about that another day. Instead of the mother talking to the daughter, the mother may express her thoughts and feelings. Thank you, Flynn. Thank you for liking the live. Thank you so much. Usually negative and criticizing to another family member in the hope that he or she will tell the daughter. Then the mother can deny that she said it, although the message somehow got out there anyway. This triangulation and communication is passive aggressive and is an expression of the sentiment, I will get you back, but not directly to your face. Many families, unfortunately, communicate this dysfunction in this dysfunctional manner, but narcissistic families are the poster example. In recovery, you will learn to say it like it is. No more pretense, no more facade. No more facade, no more inauthentic representations of ourselves like a shiny red apple with a worm inside. The narcissistic family hides profound pain to understand how these relationship dynamics set up the daughter to unconsciously create unhealthy life patterns. We have to discuss further the concern that the narcissistic family has about its image. It's all about mom and it's all about image are its mottos. All right, so now we're on to chapter 5, but let's just go to talk about what triangulation is. If some of you don't know, so the AI overview of triangulation says that in psychology, triangulation is a manipulation tactic where a person involves a third party in a relationship to maintain control. It's a form of toxic behavior that can occur in any relationship, including between friends, family, romantic partners, or colleagues. The goal of triangulation is to divide and conquer, pitting people against each other to create false narratives. The manipulator remains at the center of the attention and power. They are up here, controlling everyone down here. They are the head. And communication between the two involved people, usually the two down at the bottom. This can lead to misunderstandings and conflicts. Triangulation can be used to deflect tension, reinforce a sense of superiority or being right, create additional conflict to deflect from the original issue. So, let's So, some signs of examples of triangulation is why can't you be more like this person? If you were only as smart as this person, why don't you behave like this person? Why can't you do things like this person? This person does this. This person does that. I'm so sorry that it sounds like somebody close to you. Thank you, everyone, for liking the live. Y'all got me up to 1.5K. Yes, yes, yes. So now I'm going to go into some actual signs, some examples of triangulation, because if you don't know what's going on, you're not going to understand that that's what's happening. So, example 1, in a scenario between friends or coworkers, you would say, ever had a friend who said, "You're my best friend," one day and then whispered about you behind your back the next? People with narcissistic traits might use this tactic regularly to keep people competing for favorable attention. Ooh, sorry. It says triangulation is the narcissist's best play. So, triangulation and the golden child scapegoat family dynamic. Within the dysfunctional family unit, this is the classic golden child scapegoat dynamic. The unhealthy, toxic, and often narcissistic caregiver splits their own good self image and bad self image into two distinct parts and then projects them onto their children. Consequently, one child becomes the all good or golden child, and the other becomes the all bad scapegoat. Yes, we were talking about that, Flynn. There's a spectrum of narcissism to only having like a few narcissistic personality traits to having full blown, narcissistic personality disorder. So everybody has a couple of narcissistic characteristic traits, and they cannot, like, when you have one or two, it's not seen as a negative thing because you're not using those narcissistic characteristic traits to manipulate and harm people. People who have narcissistic personality disorder are using their narcissism to hurt other people, to get certain things done their way. So it's not like I if you have some narcissistic personality traits, I wouldn't say, "Oh, you're a terrible person and you've got narcissistic personality disorder." No. There's a spectrum of full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, which most people who have that check off all the boxes. And if you're not sure, what narcissistic personality disorder is, and if you have some of these personality traits, I'll go over a few of them. So, narcissistic personality disorder is a mental health condition that involves a pervasive pattern, a pattern of grandiosity, and excessive need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. So, just right here in this little bit of explanation, they're saying that the narcissist has a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, of thinking of grandiose ideas, that they're going to achieve these grandiose ideas. They have an excessive need for attention, and they lack empathy. Those are the first three characteristic traits. So if you have empathy, you're already crossed off the list. Does everyone have a little need for attention? Of course, we all do. Hey, Nicola, we are discussing narcissistic personality disorder. I just finished reading chapters 3 and 4 of a book called Will I Ever Be Good Enough? Healing Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers. People with NPD usually do not have vulnerability, and they are very envious of other people. So having all 5 of those lets you know that you are it's a really good book. I haven't read all of it. I just started reading it like last week. It's really good so far. Lots of good information. It's this book right here. So if you are concerned that you're a narcissist, that's usually the first sign that you're not. Because most narcissists don't even think that they are. They don't even have the capacity to think that they are doing anything wrong, if that makes sense. Most of the time, they're not sitting at home wondering if they're a narcissist. No. Because they just can't fathom that any of their behavior is negative or wrong or inappropriate or narcissistic or anything like that. So yeah, you're good. Some of the other characteristic traits, Nicola, my mom was a narcissist and also never apologized for one thing ever, ever, not ever one. That's the reason why I'm reading this book, because I've been on a journey for healing. And the last book that we read was Gypsy Rose's book. And I felt like, let's talk about some of the behaviors of narcissists and narcissistic mothers to kind of feel, and get inside what was going on with Gypsy Rose and her mother. Well, now that you're aware, you can kind of take action to figure out what it is that you want to do, Flynn. But when dealing with a narcissist, calling them out is never helpful because they don't see their behavior as inappropriate. So, in order to protect yourself from looking, feeling, or being labeled as crazy, you want to have a really good strategy when you approach them about whatever issues that you're having. Thank you, Nicola, because they're not very receptive to hearing anything that you have to say. Because usually, if you're trying to have a communication with them, they consider that as a direct attack on their character, and they are unable to hear any kinds of concerns that you may have without taking it personally. And it's just impossible for them not to take it personally, because they cannot see a world where you're not trying to blame them for whatever it is that you are feeling. And they always want to make everything seem like you are the one who is creating this issue. And if you don't bring it up, there is no issue. Yeah, they will make excuses and they will gaslight and they will make you think you're crazy. And the sheer fact that you think that you could be crazy is telling you that they're gaslighting you, because you have a right to feel whatever it is that you are feeling. You have a right to bring those concerns to whatever person you have those concerns with. It's up to them to listen and accept those concerns and change. And if they aren't able to even hear what it is that you have to say, then they're not ready for change, and you need to separate yourself from the relationship. Of course, ask any questions. I've got a lot of experience with this, like on a personal level. So I I might have the answer, I might not. Oh, Nicola, I'm so sorry to hear that. My mom didn't have a will, but if she did, I probably wouldn't be in it. She gave my sister her house and wouldn't even give me any money because I was married, and I shouldn't need any help because I'm married. So, okay, if someone makes you always feel like you need to defend yourself and you're always the problem, yeah, they're gaslighting you, honey. They're gaslighting you. That's exactly what's happening. Um, you should not need to defend yourself, though. Don't feel like you do need to defend yourself. Depending on what the situation is, you can always say, like, I understand that you're feeling that way. We're remembering things differently. I'm remembering things a different way. I understand that that's how you see things. To try to to contain the situation from being explosive, because the minute that you start defending yourself, the entire conversation is kind of out the window and you're not going to get anything resolved, because now you've gone into defending yourself rather than focusing on what the problem is. You know what I mean? That's what they want you to do. They want to gaslight you so that you defend yourself, so it detracts from you holding them accountable. They're very manipulative. It's like a practice skill that they've been doing for their entire lives. So you have to be really savvy with the manipulators and stay on task. Like if you and I were in a disagreement right now, and you were coming at me with a particular question like, hey Viv, why did you say this, that, and the other day? And I said, well, you made me say that. It was what you did. That's typical gaslighting. So you have to find a way to be, exactly, Cambria, you have to find a way to be one step ahead of them every single time. So instead of kind of giving in to what it is that they're saying, stay on topic. And you can do that by saying, I understand that you have these feelings about this, but I'd really like to talk about what it is that I'm feeling and what I'm bringing up to you. Just keep repeating that. Keep repeating it and keep repeating it until they finally answer your fucking question. You hear me? Don't let them flip it around to you. Don't let them do that. If they do, don't respond with what you normally respond with. Say, we'll get to how you feel about me, but right now I want to talk about how I'm feeling about this thing that you did. And just keep saying it. Yeah. It's tough. Trust me, it is not easy. Flynn, in all actuality, we fall into the same patterns until we're ready to break them. So it sounds to me like you're finally ready to break the cycle. And in order to do that, you are recognizing that you're in the pattern again. And you need to separate yourself from the pattern, break the pattern, and then focus on working on yourself so that you don't fall into the pattern again. That's what I'm doing right now, because I've been in the same loop for 30 years, 35 years. I've been in the same loop. So I totally get it. Once I was self-aware enough to understand that it's my fault, not all my fault, but I have a part to play in it. I needed to accept responsibility for my role in accepting these types of relationships and not doing the work on myself so that I could heal and get better and not fall into the pattern again. Because at some point, there is a part of you that keeps attracting and keeps going to this type of person. You're trying to seek something out and fulfill whatever it is in your past that you didn't get, and you're trying to fulfill that in other people instead of working on it within yourself. I know, because I've dealt with a lot. Like, if people knew half of what I've been through, they'd be like, I'm surprised you're still alive. Like, it's a lot. Kathleen, I'm sorry that your dad's gone and that you never got to get into the right place with him before he left. I can only imagine. Yeah, I don't think you look crazy. I think that at this point, because he's gone, there's no ending for you. There's no closure, but you could get closure on your own. What I had to do is I had to learn how to have a like a grieving process for the relationship that I wanted that I never got. So you can have like a little funeral is what I was told to do. Have a little funeral and grieve the father that you wanted that you never got. What does your husband say about you, Nicola? No, it's not normal. This is not normal. This is not normal stuff to be dealing with. Nobody should feel like they have to walk on eggshells in their own home with their own family. And I will say this until I am blue in the face. Nobody has the right to treat you poorly. Not your mother, not your father, not your child, not your uncles, not your brothers, not your sisters. Nobody has the right to treat you poorly. You're not a terrible parent. You're not. You're not a terrible parent. But you have the right to cut off any relationship if people are unwilling to treat you with respect and dignity and you know, I guess the best way to say if they're unable to have a mutually respectful relationship with you, you do not have to have anyone in your life. It does not matter who they are. It does not matter who they are. If they are unwilling to give you the respect that you deserve and treat you like a human being, you do not have to have them in your life. Point blank, period. Does not matter who they are. I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's your kid. If they are treating you like the narcissist would, you can cut them off too. My mom did too, Violet. I haven't had a relationship with my mom since 2018. Jody, don't feel bad. I've had to cut my son out of my life a couple of times, and he's only 19. But as I grow older and create boundaries, when people disrespect you and your boundaries, you have a right to terminate any relationship. Like, I don't know why society makes us feel like we have to accept people crossing our boundaries, treating us like shit. You don't have to accept that. I don't care who it is. You don't have to accept that type of behavior, period. If it is causing you grief, you are allowed to cut it off. Love them from afar. Hey Karen, I'm getting ready to get off so that I can wash my hair. Flynn, the best thing to do is to write down on a sheet of paper or on your notes or whatever. What you're going to do is you're going to write down the pros and the cons of being in whatever relationship you have with this person. How is this relationship mutually beneficial for not only you, but for them as well? Because relationships should be mutually beneficial. If they're benefiting and you're not, then you're not in a relationship. You're a slave. Does that make sense? What time is it in Sydney, Karen? Yep, you exactly, Karen. You do not have to keep a narc around just because they're family. Nicola, I am so sorry that you didn't get closure. I have said over and over and over again, I will not go to my mom's funeral. Period. I'm not going. I don't want to be there. If she died today, I would not go. Because she has refused to take accountability for her actions and refuses to apologize and continues to gaslight and make it like I was the problem. Like, I am, Jody. I'm on both Instagram and on Facebook. My username on Instagram is the same as it is on TikTok, and then on Facebook I'm under this, so everyone can go find me. I'm so sorry. So this is who I am on sorry you guys. On Facebook, and then on Instagram. So y'all can go find me over there. You're welcome, Violet. I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll do chapters 4 and 5. It's okay to walk away. Like, you don't need to explain to anyone. If you've tried to clarify like what it is that you need out of that relationship to try to rectify whatever problem there is, and the other party is not willing to rectify the relationship and resolve any of the problems, then you can just walk away. Like, at some point you have to say, okay, I've tried and they're unwilling. They're not being a willing participant, and I've done everything that I can do on my part. Now it's time to see if they're ready to make some changes. And when they're ready to resolve some issues, they'll come to me and apologize. And if they never do, they never do. Yeah, don't even try to explain, because they don't really care. Marilyn, I'm sorry I was such a terrible parent, but I did my best. That's basically like saying you should be grateful that I tried. And sometimes your best is not good enough, and that's still okay. It's okay that their best wasn't good enough. And it's okay to say, I'm sorry, my best wasn't good enough. I could have done more. I'm sorry that I didn't, and that you were affected by my choices. You know what I mean? Like, that's okay to say. But a lot of parents don't want to say that. They want you to feel bad for whatever, and I did my best. I'm sorry it wasn't good enough. Like, they're throwing a little temper tantrum. Religion, sometimes you have to put your religion aside, because nobody deserves respect if they're not giving respect. It doesn't matter what religion that you are in. Nobody just deserves undeniable respect all the time. There's a lot of us who have been victims of narcissism. Yeah, that's how I feel too, Karen. Not just to have your life destroyed, but to continually accept negative treatment from the people that say that they are supposed to love you. Like, these people that are supposed to love you are the ones who treat you like shit. It's hard to say. I don't think I've ever looked up that fact, Marilyn, to see like how much of the actual population is narcissistic. I believe we all are. We all have a small amount of narcissism. I'm not sure what the percentage is of people who actually have narcissistic personality disorder, because that's obviously going to be way higher than the people who just have, a small amount of narcissistic personality. Thank you, Nicola. All right, I'm going to get off here. So, because I got to go wash my hair. Oh, Dare to Be Right said something really interesting. Dare to Be Different said something really interesting. She said if they are lacking in empathy, maybe they can't give a heartfelt apology because they don't feel it. They can't say the words because they're just hollow inside. And I think that she's absolutely correct, because most narcissistic people don't have the capacity to have emotion like we do, so they don't feel things the way that we do. They expect you to just get over it, just get over it, just move on. Why do we keep having to revisit the same thing? Oh, aren't you over that yet? You know what I'm saying? That's how they look at things. A narcissist does always bring up your mistakes. You can buy the book on Amazon. It's called Will I Ever Be Good Enough? And you can buy it on Amazon if you want. But they do always bring up your mistakes. It's a way for them to deflect from what it is that you're trying to have a conversation with them about, to say, oh, you're not perfect either because you did this, this, and this. But it's not about being perfect. It's just about acknowledging what it is that they're doing wrong in order to correct the problem. Because if you don't correct the problem, it's just a vicious cycle happening over and over and over again. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And Marilyn, yeah, that whole thing about trying to ruin the mood until you had a problem with it, it's because you've had the problem and you've tried to talk about the problem, and every time you've tried to talk about the problem, they won't allow you to talk about the problem. They deflect from it or try to gaslight you into thinking that it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal because it's bothering you. So just because it's not a big deal to them doesn't mean that it's not a big deal to you, and that your opinion should not be valued because your feelings were hurt or whatever. Like, everybody views things differently, and we all have a right to be offended with whatever offends us, whatever hurts our feelings. And if somebody willingly hurts our feelings and then denies that our feelings are hurt, or tells us that our feelings shouldn't be hurt, or that we're stupid for having our feelings hurt, or whatever, they're the problem. They're the issue. They are, in fact, the problem. Yeah, I don't either, Karen. I've just accepted it and move on. Because there's no point in trying to communicate with a narcissist. It's just talking in circles over and over and over again. Nothing ever gets resolved. I'll see y'all tomorrow.